someone who has a lot of issues with your wrists and needs to build up a little bit more strength there to be able to enhance your yoga practice or your lifting or just your daily life, you might be able to find some things in here that are going to work out well for you. So to start with, we're just going to warm everything up by clasping your hands and just making some circles. It kind of looks like a figure eight. Be sure to bleed one direction and then the other. You don't have to get too specific about it, just loosening things up a little bit. And do that for about 10 more seconds. And shake that out. Next thing we're going to do is, again, just getting things nice and warm. You're going to take your fingers against the back of your thumb and you're going to flick out. We're going to do that 10 times. And again, shake it out. Nothing too crazy there yet. Adding a little bit of flexibility, we're going to come into essentially a tabletop, but we're going to move our hands in all directions. So I'll demonstrate face up and then go onto all fours. So first with fingertips up, and then fingertips out, and then finally fingertips back. And we're going to move through all of those different directions. So just shifting weight into each hand and then turning the hands out, and then turning the hands back, and starting over again. You can do that just a couple of times, nice and simple, not getting too big with it. Just kind of getting some movement, loosening things up through the wrists. Now we're going to start to get a little bit bigger. So if we turn our fingertips back to the front, we're now going to shift our weight forward and get a stretch, and we're going to hold. And come back out. Do that again, hold. Coming back up, one more time like this, forward. Pause. Now we're going to turn them on, same kind of idea. So we're going to shift a little to one direction, and then shift a little to the other, just getting a little bit deeper with the flexibility. About 3 rounds. And then finally turning the hands back. This is the one that can get a little intense. So if we turn the hands back, we can first just lean our way back. So it's very similar to what we're doing forward. We're leaning back, give it a little pause, and come forward. So do that about 3 times. Now we're going to get a little bit bigger. So we're going to, keeping everything fairly stacked, we're just going to start to try to bend your elbows. As you can see, mine don't go very far. Bend as far as you comfortably can, and then straighten. I say comfortably, it's not super comfortable. Bending and straightening. One more time, a little bend, and a little straighten. And finally, sitting back on your heels, start to lean back until those palms start to come up, and you're going to peel up and come back down. So now we're starting to work all the way through the fingers, peeling up and laying back down. Taking that about 3 more times. Peel it up and down, up and down. Let's get intense at any point. You can just stop and shake your hands out. Feel free. In fact, after that round, is exactly what we're going to do. We're going to shake it out. And come back to those circles. Sometimes it helps things kind of loosen back up again. Release all that. I find that I can go one direction really easily, and the other direction feels really awkward. So if you find that, just know that's normal. And we're not very balanced from side to side in general. All right, now we've shaken that off. We're going to do our next exercise. We're going to again come back into that tabletop. And this time, we're going to keep our weight nice and centered over the palms. We're going to play with coming up high onto the fingertips. So keeping that weight there, we're just going to lift up, just lifting the palm and down. So not onto the fingertips yet, just onto the fingers for the first rounds. Coming up and down and up and down about 5 times total. And now we'll take it up higher onto the fingertips, almost like a little spider. I'm doing this kind of motion, if you can see it a little bit better. Just coming up onto the fingers and squeeze in and down, up and down. Again, getting that about 5 times. And then letting that go. So all of that is going to slowly start to strengthen your wrists, especially this one where you're just coming up to the edges of the fingers. So the palm is coming up, your weight is staying grounded from here, right at the balls of the fingers, or the pads of the fingers, all the way up into the actual fingers themselves. So this part stays on the mat, and this part starts to lift up. And what that's doing is it's starting to strengthen all of the muscles that run into the hands and into the wrists. So it's going to give you a little bit more stability and a little Another exercise you can do if you happen to have something that's called rock climber's putty. You can also use anything that you can squeeze. If you've got like a soft rubber ball that you could grab a hold of, honestly, you can even do it with something like a towel. Anything that you can squeeze and release, and squeeze and release, and taking some motions like that. Because the muscles that are going to support your wrist run all the way up into your hands. So as we support and strengthen everything that runs through the hands and runs through the forearms, the stronger that wrist area is going to become, which is going to make it more and more able to endure just basic activities. So it's going to allow you to do a little bit more weight bearing. It doesn't mean you're going to be able to do as much weight bearing as someone who doesn't have any issues with their wrists, but it's going to let you go a little bit farther than you might have been able to before. So the last thing we're going to do here is just a couple of stretches. Very similar to what we were doing on the mat, but we're taking the pressure a little bit off the wrists. So sometimes the stretch can come a little deeper into the forearm, at least that's what I find. So taking one arm in front of you, other hand is going to come to your fingertips, and just gently pull back. And instead of moving out, this time we're going to stay in static hold. You may even find that as you start to bend your arm, it's going to shift where you feel that stretch. And when you find a spot that makes you go, oof, hang out there for a couple of breaths. And then release, take it to the other side. So fingertips up, pulling back. Again, soft, gentle bend. See if you find a spot that works for you. Everyone's a little different. Like, I don't have any trigger spots on this right side. So there's no place that as I was bending, I suddenly had a moment of, wow, this is more intense. Whereas on the left hand, I definitely did. So I hung out in that spot for a little longer. So see what you need. Letting that go. So that was fingertips up. Now we're going to turn same direction. So starting with the fingertips up, we're just going to point the fingertips down. Hand can come to the back of the hand. So this feels better if you're on the back of the hand as opposed to on the fingertips usually. Right there at the joint. Get that nice big stretch. Again, you can play with bending the elbow. You may not get as much motion. I can go fairly deep, but you may not. That's okay. And you can either static hold right here, or what I find works best for me is to bend and gently straighten the elbow. A little bit of movement back and forth. For me personally, I find that gets things to loosen up a little bit better. Everyone's a little different though. Then taking it to the other side. So fingers facing down, palm facing towards you, hand to the back of the bent hand. Get a stretch right to the front of that forearm. And then playing with that little bend and straighten if you like it. Shake all that out. 2 more stretches. So again, just to keep orientation straight, we're going to start the same for every single one. So fingertips facing up, palm facing away from you. But now we're just going to flip the hand and pull in. It's going to hit slightly different areas when we're doing it the other way. And you can play with bending the elbow and straightening the elbow. Other side, fingertips facing up, palm away. Rotate the fingertips down and pull back. In the elbow. So depending on how tight things are for you, this may be really extreme and that may be all you've got. If it's not, I've been doing these exercises for quite a while now, so I get a lot more bend here. So just know that if your arm doesn't bend like this, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you, it just means you've got a different level of flexibility in that joint. We work with whatever we need. You may honestly be at a place where you pull back, and that's as far as you go, and that's absolutely okay. As long as you're feeling something, that's the only thing that we really care about. It doesn't have to match anybody else's. Last one. And we're going to start the same, but then we're going to rotate down, and then we're going to point the fingers up. So you can tell we're getting all 4 directions. Because depending upon which way your wrist is facing, lets you get to different muscles. There we go. And the last one, again, starting our usual way, fingertips up, rotate it down, and then bend up. There's always the option to explore bending and straightening if that enhances your stretch. And then finally let that go and shake that out. Know that your wrists might be a little bit sore if you don't usually do this kind of thing. So go easy on them, give them a little bit of love. But this will, over time, again, especially that one where we're taking our weight forward and starting to come up. If you you find that this starts to get easy and you're like, I could do this all day long, still going nice and slow with it, take your knees further back, putting more weight onto your wrists. It will make this a whole lot harder. So if you find this starts to become easy, you can intensify it and build even more